it is my pleasure to give this talk to this young audience. Global warming and climate change are a major threat to our global society, especially your children and grandchildren. And the problem was created by gray-haired generation of my generation. But we believe that the new generation, the young people, are really going to solve the problem. And one of the points, the reason I wanted to give this, because it is the younger generation which really can play a very important role. Okay? If you watch this slide, if you are interested in global well-being, it's not just global change; it's also inequality and powers. It's also degradation of the environment. So we really have to, and especially because society is very fractured, and so it's a challenging problem. But let's look at the facts. These are the facts that hopefully everybody agrees on. Population is increasing. It will become 10 billion, more than 10 billion by 2100. This is the carbon dioxide. You see on the x-axis the years, and on the left y-axis is the amount of carbon dioxide, which is measured in terms of parts per million. If you take 1 million molecules of air, 350 of them will be CO2 molecules. So that's the way we measure. And you look, it has a beautiful up and down every year. That is basically the breathing in and breathing out of the biosphere. And then it's going up all the time. We also know that temperature is increasing. This is the global mean temperature. And once the global mean temperature is increasing, of course, it will follow a lot of other impacts will happen. And by the way, I just want to make sure you know why carbon dioxide is increasing. It's because of our human activities. We are driving cars. We are building factories, industries. These are all essential parts of society. So this is going to be the dilemma for this, because the same things that have been responsible for our growth of society in the last 200 years, now we know that there is a big problem. We also know that society is feeling very serious effects. You must be seeing this, impacts, and heat waves, floods. If you look at the Arctic sea ice, I mean, look at 1982 and 2012. Look at in pink, all the area that was covered by sea ice. Look at in 2012. And we also know that species are dying. There is a biodiversity loss. Some people think it is the sixth big extinction. Look at the healthy coral on the left and a very sick coral because of climate change on the right. So now the question is that, so these are all real facts, okay? This is not a hoax. This is not a con job. This is a real fact. And now let's talk about the science, because I said that I think that it's very important that you, young generation, who will eventually be involved with national, local, state policies, know the fundamental facts about science. And see, in order to look at the science, let's first look at what is temperature. So by the way, this is a global map of temperature. You can see the scale below. And we know tropical areas are very hot, polar areas are very cold. Now, if you take the temperature values at grid point, every grid point, and average this, you will get a number. Let me tell you what number it will be. That number will be 15 degrees today. But that number was 14 degrees for the past 10,000 years. So please, just keep this in mind. For 10,000 years, our global mean temperature was 14 degrees centigrade. Now, for the past 100 years, the average is 15 degrees. This 1 degree change is called global warming. And it's a very serious problem. And it's important to understand the science behind it. So let me tell you that the science behind it is very easy to understand if I ask you a simple question. And I do that to all my students in my, why it gets cold at night? Everybody thinks, oh, that's a very simple question. My students think, they raise their hands, oh, there's no sun. There's no sun heating us, so that's why it is cold at night. When I tell them that for that answer you will get a B or B minus, they're surprised. Perhaps you also thought that to be the answer, but let me explain to you that is not the full correct answer. Why? For that you need to know some physics. The Earth radiation, Earth is losing energy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time. Okay, this is something, everything that has temperature loses energy. Your body has some temperature. You are losing energy all the time. You may say, why don't I feel cold? Well, you're eating breakfast, lunch, dinner. And hotter the body, more you lose. So the temperature decides that. So this is a fact that is not appreciated, that annually, Earth actually loses 122,000 trillion watts of energy to space, which is the same amount of energy we get from sun. That's why we have a mean climate. This stable equilibrium is called mean climate. And that stable is now at 15 degrees. Before it was at 14 degrees. And the question is why? And the reason is because of CO2, increase of CO2. And I can explain to you very simply. CO2 has this peculiar property. All the energy that comes from the sun, it just goes down. But the energy that goes from Earth to space gets absorbed by the CO2. So CO2 works like a greenhouse. That's why it also is called greenhouse gases. So this is really now absolutely well understood fact about the fact that global warming is real, it is human induced, and now we should talk about what to do about it. And first of all, we should also look at what is the prediction for the future. Prediction is always done by using a model. We do prediction by climate model. What is a climate model? I don't want you to get disturbed by so many things on this figure. Just remember simple fact. You divide the whole globe and atmosphere into about 1 million boxes. And at each box, there are 10 equations. So you have 100 million equations. You solve them by a supercomputer, and you get what happens in the next 2 minutes. Then another 2 minutes. Then another 2 minutes. By the way, that is how weather forecast is made for 10 days. But we in climate do the same thing for 100 years in 2-minute intervals. And that's how we predict climate. And so it is a well-defined science. Many places in the world are doing it. There are thousands of scientists. This is what we are predicting will happen at the end of the century. This is the global warming. Now look at the global warming, which is 1 degree now, maybe 1.5 degrees. By 2100, the entire planet is red. Two things please notice. The land will warm much more than the ocean, and the polar regions are warming much, much faster than. So these are the facts that we already know. And if you look at the 200 years, what will happen? Look at the temperature will happen in 2200 or 2300. It's 8 degrees, 10 degrees of global warming. Now you may ask, how come you have such a large error bar? Well, we have uncertainty because we don't know, our society, how much energy it will release in 2200 or 2100. Okay? So we have to assume scenarios. We'll just not do anything, then we'll go at the very bad outcomes. Then the others down, you see that, oh, if you do something about it, and if you control the emissions, then we'll keep the temperature balanced. So the message is that if we want our planet and our societies to really keep the kind of quality of life that we have, then we actually have to find a way to control the emissions. So I'll just repeat again. It's not a hoax. We really need to do it if we want to concern about the future of our children and grandchildren, because they will fear the brunt of this impact. So who has done it? Who's responsible for it? So we teach climate science as a detective novel. Who done it? Well, first of all, this slide tells you that the rich 10% of the people release 27 tons of CO2 each year per person. Each rich person, whereas the bottom 90%, they release about 3.6%. So this is our society is very unequal. Poor people who are not releasing much will suffer the most. So in any country, this is true for almost every country. Now go internationally. What is happening internationally? Look at and again, y-axis is the amount of in the billion tons released by each country. China is now the biggest polluter. I'm using the word polluter just because whoever is releasing the most. Guess what? We were the number one until 2003 or 4. And if you take the average of last 100 years, we are still number one. So this is the different countries are releasing. India is going up, China is going up, and these are very large countries. So this is why future control and emission has to depend upon international negotiations. We just can't force people because they want to increase the quality of life of their people. So they will say that, well, we need to do something about our people. So that is really the big challenge now, how to have international understanding so that we can control the emissions. How do you do international understanding? How do you make policies? There where the politics comes. And when it comes to politics, we, the United States, is the most divided country in the world. Look at the record of Democrats and Republicans, completely opposite to each other. And that is why no bill can get passed. Okay. So this is a pity that the scientific fact, which I told you, it's a beautiful scientific fact, has been now completely overtaken by ideology. And this little kid here, by the way, is a climate scientist who is praying in 2015, please God, do something. We need really agreement. Then our prayers were answered and we got President Trump. Well, after that, let me tell you, there have been 4 presidents. Obama, then Biden, well, Obama, then Trump, then Biden, then Trump. And you will be absolutely surprised to know that we are the laughing stocks in the world because we know that Paris Climate Conference was the biggest international agreement that all the countries in the world had agreed in 2015. It was one of the best meetings in the world. Can you imagine 195 countries saying, we agree with scientists. We are going to reduce our emissions, but not in US. Obama joined the Paris Agreement. Trump came, withdrew from the Paris Agreement. We're not part of it. Biden came, he joined again. Trump came again, he has withdrawn. So we are going in and out of the Paris Agreement. And even in the calculations of what we want to do, Obama said we have to have 50 miles per gallon. Trump said, no, 37. Biden came, he says 52. So it's just a absolutely tragic story in US about the politics. But without politics, we cannot solve it. So I don't want to leave you with this kind of depressing message. We actually have very hopeful signs for climate solution. Why? There are a lot of international negotiations are going on. There are a lot of technical advances and a lot of policy actions and a lot of individual actions. You know, solar has grown 42%. Price of batteries has come down tremendously. The use of coal in producing electricity now is absolutely lowest compared to this. So we have a lot of positive signs, and I really think that we have to ask, so what can we, so many times I've asked this, what can I do? Young people particularly, I'll live with 3 main points. I think you have to reduce your personal carbon footprint. And by personal, I mean not your own, but also your family. if your parents are about to buy the third car, I think you should be telling them about climate change. But the most important thing is that we have to elect climate literate leaders. It's very important. Young people have to join protests and rallies. That is what has worked. You all must have heard about Greta Thunberg. She made a huge difference in the exciting the young people in the world. Okay, so I like to end my lecture on a positive note that I tell you as a scientist that it is a solvable problem. Why I say that? We did that for Montreal Protocol for ozone layer. We did that for COVID-19. And now climate change, we understand the science, we have the technology, we need an engaged public and the political will to advance the policies. And that's why you young generation play a very important role. Thank you very much.